What's up, podcast friends? I'm happy to share that we've teamed up with Dormco to make your dorm decorating a lot easier. Why Dormco? They offer quality and durability, affordability, and a wide selection for bedding to storage solutions and everything in between for your dorm room. So if you or anyone you know is looking to decorate your dorm, see the affiliate partnership link in the show notes for Dormco, your one stop for stylish, affordable, and quality dorm essentials. Please note that if you make a purchase through any of our affiliate links, the podcast gets a commission, but rest assured that we would only promote products that we believe in and feel would benefit our listeners. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Andrew Brewick, who is the Assistant Vice Provost for Enrollment Management and the Director of Admissions at Washington State University. Andrew, I can't tell you what an honor it is to have you here today. Thank you so much, and how are you?
John, I'm great. I'm delighted to be with you and excited to have this conversation. Thanks so much for the invitation.
It is our honor and pleasure, Andrew. Thank you so much. So let's get right to it. I was curious to know, Andrew, what are some of the things that you personally love about Washington State University that makes it so appealing for so many students to want to apply and ultimately attend?
Well, John, of course, it's hard to pinpoint just one or two things. I would say that the number one characteristic that I love about Washington State University, which we, of course, shorten to WSU, go Cougs, is the spirit of the community, right? So WSU, the main campus, the Pullman campus, is a large Research One institution in a small rural climate, right? So it affords our students the opportunity to come and really embrace that full residential campus experience and engage fully in 4 or 5 years of living the life of the mind and going through the maturation processes that we've constructed for them and forging relationships that they will have for the remainder of their days. And then it gives me great pleasure to go out into the wider community. And since taking this position 16 months ago, I have never been in an airport where somebody didn't shout "Go Cougs" at me because I was wearing WSU gear. It is a family, and there is this like overarching Coug spirit that really is emblematic of how people feel toward this institution and the fact that you once a Coug, you're always a Coug. And so out there in the wider world, the Cougs abound, and they are always delighted to come up and share with me their personal experiences in Pullman or our campus in Vancouver, our campus in Tri-Cities, even students who engage in our online global campus, they have that same Coug spirit. And so I think that is probably what I like most is both the environment as well as what the environments across our campuses create in terms of student commitment and community.
Well, thank you so much for that overview, Andrew. We really appreciate it. And I know that the WSU family spirit is alive and well. So, again, we really appreciate it. So, let me ask, students usually spend at least 4 years in college. So, visiting campus before committing to a school is important for them to get a feeling of the campus and, of course, the surrounding area. So, if a student is able to come to campus, what are some of the areas that they should visit? And what are some questions they should be asking to help them determine whether or not WSU is the right fit for them?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. I think I divide that into a couple of categories. I think first, it is absolutely critical, if at all possible, that you visit the campus. And of course, all of our campuses have like a campus visit experience. We have our tour guides. So, we really do a very intentional job to create an experience that hopefully will provide students and families with the information that they need. But also in advance, I would encourage students and families to do a little bit of research around what are some of the kind of overriding themes and metrics for our institutions. It has never been easier for families and students to access high quality information about how well universities perform. And I think it would be naive to say that we shouldn't be held accountable to those things, right? So one of the most important things that I care about as a professional and that I will care about when I am, evaluating schools with my two daughters is what's the graduation rate? Right. So, what's the percentage of students that an institution moves through in a timely fashion? And that, that's separated into the 4 year graduation rate and the 6 year graduation rate. Because as you identified, students spend on average 4 to 5 years participating in the baccalaureate or bachelor's degree experience. So I'd say in advance, you want to look that up, right? You want to know how well an institution does at supporting its students through to graduation. And the other thing that you'd look at is what we call student retention, right? Which is kind of an awkward word to use, but what we mean is what's the percentage of students who are retained or who choose to remain enrolled from the first year to the second year. And that is critical because we know that a student is most academically and socially at risk in their first semester at a university or college. And then subsequently their second semester, so the full duration of their first year. So I would suggest that students and families do some research in those areas in advance. And then during the campus tour, you really want every campus is going to show you the laboratory. Every campus is going to show you the library. And every campus is going to show you their fanciest and nicest dining hall. Well, I think also you want to see what is the most common residence hall because that's where you're going to live. And you want to, try the food because that's what you're going to eat. And every student I've ever met complains about the food by week 5, and that's just part of the experience. But when you're on a campus tour, you want to, take advantage and try and kick the tires, get a sense of how it's really going to feel to be a student on that campus day in and day out, especially in campuses like ours, right? This is a residential campus with an amazing relationship with the community, but we're not in a metro center, right? To be a Coug in Pullman, that means that you're going to be really, in the campus and the wider community of just 30,000 people, and that's going to be the primary aspects of your life. In terms of questions, I would suggest strongly that students and families take advantage of the connection to a current student that they'll almost certainly get. So the entire, phalanx of tour guides that we employ are all current students. And if you want to know what it feels like to be a student on any campus, you don't ask, you don't ask a grizzled veteran like me. You ask a student, right? You say, "What's your favorite thing? Where do you like to hang out? Do you feel supported?" And I think in terms of some of the other, questions that are pressing among students and families is, does this institution offer the major that I'm intending? But let's take a step back, John, and recognize that 2/3 of students in higher education change their major on average twice. So,
Right,
the major, and I would say that developmentally, it's somewhat inappropriate for us to think that 17 and 18-year-olds in the main are going to know what their
right.
major should be. That's why they come to higher education. But I think, identifying a larger, we kind of call them meta majors, right? So like making sure that an institution has programs within the kind of sphere of your major interest areas, and then trust the process to help you identify the specific major, during your time at an institution.
Well, that's tremendous advice and great insight in terms of what to do if, in fact, you get a chance to visit the campus. Andrew, you did mention doing your research. You talked about graduation rates. You talked about retention rates. Can you share with us what are the graduation rates and the retention rate at WSU?
Yeah, absolutely, John. I will have to, for the graduation rate, I'll actually have to go onto the college scorecard, which is a federally available website that I would encourage everybody to look up. Because I don't have that right at my fingertips, especially the 6 year graduation rate. So I'll get that for you here in a second. But our retention rate hovers between 80 and 83%, right?
Wow.
So 4 out of 5 students choose to remain at WSU on the Pullman campus from their first year onward, and our 6-year graduation rate is north of 60%. And so,
Right.
we do a remarkable job supporting our students. I mean, especially given the fact that we are a major Research One institution in a rural setting. It's one of the most biggest pride points that I have about WSU is when I go to conferences and talk to my colleagues at other institutions, like institutions, they are amazed that we continue to be over 80% retention. And it's a testament to the incredible work that goes on by staff members and faculty, because in this culture, we are all student retention specialists. We are all here to make sure that students are successful, and that is our primary directive.
Well, we appreciate that. And of course, yes, it is a testament to the work that you do in admissions to bring the right students to your campus, but also the work that the university does to foster that community and family feel to keep students happy and on your campus beyond the first year. So thank you so much for that, Andrew. And by the way, if you have any links that you want me to share in the show notes, please provide them to me. I always put the WSU, for example, Office of Undergraduate Admissions, in the show notes. But if there's anything else, please send it to me and I'll make it available to the students and their parents.
Will do.
So I was also curious, what are some of the things that students do to demonstrate their interest in attending WSU? And do you track such things as your overall process?
So absolutely, we do track. A lot of our students, and this is the similar for most state institutions like ours. The vast majority of our incoming students, both first years and transfers, are from the state of Washington, right? So Washington State University is a land grant institution, and written into the land grant. The Morrill Act, named after Justin Morrill, is the fact that we are to provide an education to the sons and daughters of toil. And that's something that I and this office care deeply about. But in terms of your question, yes. So we, of course, are tracking student behavior online, and many of our students will begin engaging with WSU through our web presences, or we will be marketing to them in social media platforms. And so, as we all know, our little digital overlords that we carry in our pockets are tracking everything we do, and so we can see that information. But then we also have the opportunity to track students as they come through. We host a FFA conference, right? And we host some business plans, and we host all sorts of events that draw students at kind of all sections of the continuum in preparation for the university. And then we also engage with specific programming for students who might be considering WSU. So a great example is for students who have already been admitted. We have a series of what are called Experience WSU events. We have one tomorrow, and I'll be giving the welcome to that group. And it's an opportunity for students, and we do target students who have not visited in the past. And so we try and make sure that it's an opportunity for students to come and have that experience, to feel the Coug spirit, and to see our campus. And then we incentivize it by, if a student comes to experience WSU, then they earn a one-time $1,000 visitation scholarship. So we
Wow.
defray their cost of attendance for their first year by $1,000, because that's how important it is for us to have our students come and enjoy our community. In terms of tracking other experiences, especially for Washington residents, we have and maintain really strong relationships with our high school counselors. And so we will be made aware of students who are intending to apply to WSU years in advance. We'll get requests for information, or we'll get a high school counselor who says, you know, my ninth grader Richard Jones just absolutely loves WSU, so and asked me to ask you to put him on the mailing list, and that happens more honestly more than people would expect. We track our students through, and then of course we're very very concerned about helping students to complete the application and very smoothly transition from an applicant to an admitted student to what we call a matriculant, so someone who has registered for a slate of first semester classes. and then that student moves into new COOG orientation. And so what we try and do is not only track students to reach the admission phase, but then very intentionally create a wonderful transition for a student as they're joining us here, either on the physical campus or on our digital campus.
Well, we appreciate that. And Andrew, what about an honors program? Do you have one? And how are students considered for the program? In other words, do they have to apply separately?
So it does require a supplemental application for students. They will, at the point of being admitted to WSU, they then can go in and they are expected to complete two writing prompts. And so it's an essay based application. Those are then considered by our honors college administration. The population is winnowed down to the number of slots that they have available, and those students are invited to join the honors college, and they often find that out even before the summer starts. So it's a wonderful opportunity for students to have a more tailored approach to what we call the U Core, the university core requirements, and then also a really enriching experience that likely will connect them with research opportunities if they're moving in the STEM areas, or internships with different institutions and entities. So yeah, we've got a wonderful honors presence.
Well, that's terrific. And I know that we were speaking earlier before we started recording about the fact that Washington State University is test not considered.
Correct.
Andrew, could you explain exactly what that means?
Absolutely. So, formerly we would use the phrase test blind, but that, of course, was inconsiderate toward our non sighted population. So, we have elected to change the term, and all public baccalaureate institutions in Washington state are now test not considered. And that is exactly what we need. You are welcome to send your ACT or SAT scores to WSU. We will accept them, but we will not factor them in to the evaluation for admissibility. To be quite honest, the research indicates that how a student performs in high school, as evidenced by their high school transcript, is the best indicator of college success. So for a long time, institutions were using test scores, and we would kind of balance them against the high school GPA. But in the main, the high school GPA is the best indicator. And so we elected, of course, like all other institutions during the pandemic, when testing was simply not available to students, we went test not considered, and we intend to stay that way moving forward.
Well, we appreciate that. And you mentioned the GPA. I was curious because the transcript is the most important part of the academic portion of the application. Can you walk us through what you're looking for when reviewing an applicant's transcript? And does it differ based on the student's intended major?
Yeah, great question. So I like to think of our team here as academic archaeologists. That essentially what we do is dig through transcripts as if they're historical artifacts, which of course they are. And what we do is a process called holistic review. So what we're trying to do is take all the information that we have available about the student in the absence of test scores, because those are not considered, and to try and understand whether or not they have sufficient preparation to join the WSU community. Within the state of Washington, it's actually legislated as to what a student needs to have completed in order to be college ready. So we have what are called CADRs, right, which are the college academic distribution requirements. Just one of the nicest, most friendly acronyms you'll ever meet, and no high school student knows what they are. Um, so, that in many ways makes our work easier because it sets a set of uniform expectations, and so, what we're really looking for is completion of Algebra 2 so that we know that a student has sufficient quantitative understanding to come in and be ready for the rigors of college mathematics. We're looking for 4 years of English. We're looking for 3 years of social science, and we're looking for quantitative based science that also has a lab, so biology and chemistry. And then, so we have those as kind of our foundation. And we're also looking for, if a student has taken advantage of additional enrichment opportunities, if they took AP classes and IB curriculum, so the International Baccalaureate curriculum. If they did, within the state of Washington, we have what's called Running Start, which is it's college level curriculum delivered through either a university or a community college that high school students can take advantage of. And so what we do is take a look at all of those different pieces, and provided that a student has got adequate preparation and a minimum GPA, for us it's of a 3.0, then that student is very, very likely to be admitted to WSU. In fact, in the state of Washington, we're actually in the second year of a program that we call WAGAP, which stands for Washington Guaranteed Admissions Program. And to have your admission guaranteed to any of 5 participating institutions, you need a 3.0 and be on track to be college ready based on the cadres that I described earlier. So it's very simple. The number of times that I'm in a social situation and somebody learns that I'm the director of admissions at WSU, they say, "Okay, what's the secret?" And I say, "There's no secret. There's none. If you're a student in Washington, you've got a 3.0 and you're on track to be college ready, you're a kook."
Well, that's fantastic. And I love how you explain the caters, the Running Start program. And I love the reference as well, by the way, to you and your colleagues being academic archaeologists, explaining your holistic approach to the overall application. And speaking of the application process, Andrew, I was also curious, what are the different ways a student may apply to Washington State University? And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other?
Yeah, so we have 2 application instruments. This is the first year that we launched a partnership with the Common App. And so the Common App is partnered with over 1,200 institutions across the US. So roughly a quarter of all colleges and universities now accept the Common App. And the benefit to the Common App is that a student need only complete that bio demo information, parental information, all of that once. And so once you've filled out the shell of your application, then you go through and identify the different institutions to which you want to apply. Most will have a supplemental form. I think ours is 6 questions, so very easy. So it's just a quick, clickety click, 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 send it off. You do have to pay each application fee, so there's not a single fee for your Common App. You have to pay each application fee to each institution, and that's really increased the diversity of our applicant pool. It has increased especially non-resident students who, for whatever reason, and these are students that, when we spoke earlier, John, about how do we track students, well, these are students that we call stealth applicants. We had no idea,
Right,
right?
right.
Like, it might be that they're avid ESPN watchers and they know that the WSU flag has flown at every single game day, and they're like, impulse, click, I'm going to apply to WSU. So there is benefit to that it really it removes the burden of having to duplicate and fill in that information on multiple application instruments. But the benefit of our locally controlled application, the one that we tailor to our specific needs, is that it probably requires a third, if not a quarter, of the time. Right. So the Common App,
Right,
it it
right.
it takes upwards of an hour to
Right.
to complete that shell, and our application can be completed in 15 to 18 minutes.
Wow.
And that's because we did that intentionally. We did it intentionally to try and make it the best user experience it could be, and to strip it down to just that information that we need to, do federal reporting and make an admissions decision. One of the dirty little secrets in higher education is that everybody with a research question wants to have it included on the application for admission, which, one, makes the applications longer, and two, is confusing to the student because often you're asking information that has no bearing on admissibility.
Right.
And so we decided last year, was like, nope, we're going to strip this thing down. But over 60% of our applications came through the Common App. So it's clear that that there is a great groundswell and momentum around having that information entered once and then be able to apply to multiple institutions with great ease. And I think that's serving our students, diversifying our applicant pool. I'm happy either way.
Hey, podcast friends, are you or someone you know in need of some custom college gear? Prep Sportswear carries a wide variety of college fan gear and apparel, including t shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, and so much more. So, whether you're getting ready to go to the game, hanging out on campus, organizing a college bed decorating party, or you're simply looking to build upon your college gear, Prep Sportswear has you covered. Check out our Prep Sportswear affiliate partnership link in the show notes for all the details. As an affiliate partner with Prep Sportswear, the podcast does receive a small commission if you make a purchase. But rest assured that we would only promote products that we believe in and feel that would benefit our listeners. And now, back to the show. Well, we really appreciate that insight. And I was also curious, Andrew, do you offer an ED, early decision option, early action, rolling? What are the options that you offer at WSU? And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other in terms of those options?
So we admit on a rolling basis,
Hmm.
and so our students who are super gung ho and want to fill out the application in August, they're going to get an admission or a denied decision, within a few days. The But we do have what's called our application priority date, and that's January 31st, and that aligns with
Right.
our local scholarship application deadline. And so the benefits there are if a student has applied, they can also then apply for specific scholarships that will be decided after January 31. Also, if you want to be considered for our top scholar designation, which is one of our highest academic honors for incoming first year students, your application needs to be submitted by January 31st. Now you don't sacrifice any of our what are called merit waivers, right? So scholarships based on high school academic performance. You don't sacrifice those until our March 31st deadline.
Understood. Well, thank you so much for that insight. I really appreciate it. And I received some inquiries about students that are homeschooled. Andrew, how does the application process differ for students that are homeschooled?
Yeah, so what we do primarily is work with and conduct holistic review for students who have strong academic preparation, have met all of the caters and our expectations, and so those are pretty simple. We're able to work through those quite seamlessly. But then when we get students who have some kind of alternate background, so homeschool is a great example. We also have students who are right on the margins of admissibility and warrant a second look by someone with additional training. That's where we have kind of second tier admissions officers who go through. And for homeschool students, I mean, we will go through, look up the accrediting body, we will go through and review the curriculum. We dig deeply in because one, that's what the student deserves, and the student deserves it because we need to know that the student does indeed have the academic preparation, demonstrated academic preparation to join WSU because and we take this very seriously. If a student, the worst thing that could happen is we admit a student and they come and leave WSU with a bad experience for which they were not adequately prepared, and they have some debt and no degree.
Right,
And so to us,
right.
it is kind of our sacred mission to make sure that we are providing this opportunity to students who are qualified for it and are prepared for it. And in order to do that for homeschool students, it means we're taking like a half day of somebody's time to go through and do the due diligence, do the research to make sure that that student is evaluated in the way that they deserve. And then similarly, it's those students like right on the margins of admissibility. So a student, while the we have the caters in Washington, those kind of core requirements, we as institutions are allowed to waive up to 3 caters. And that is because we have students in districts that don't offer some of those courses. We're a local control state, so we have to be mindful that some students simply didn't have AP curricula at their fingertips. There's
Right.
no way they could do Running Start, and so we go through, and for those students who are right on the fence, um, if they're really on the fence, we take it to a group review. And so it goes through two officers. And if those two officers still don't feel like they can do it, we bring it to a group of between 5 and 7 people. And we meet every week and we look at individual cases, making sure that we're giving the students the time and attention that they deserve. And then together we come to a consensus around admit or deny.
Well, thank you so much for the comprehensive answer. And that certainly is a great mission that you described. So we appreciate it. And also, Andrew, does Washington State University offer any programs for students that may have had an IEP while in high school to, of course, help ensure that they continue to be successful once they're on your campus?
Absolutely, John. So we have an access center, and the access center is specifically designed to help provide accommodations to students with known learning challenges, with the whole myriad of learning differences. And so students can access those. But here's the most important thing that I tell to students and parents: when a student comes to a university, we are not allowed to ask whether or not that student had accommodations in their K
Right,
12 experience. It
right,
is 100% the responsibility of the student to bring forward their learning concerns so that we can get the documentation necessary to provide the student the accommodation that they need and deserve. I think it's often misunderstood by students and families and probably the wider culture that the whole reason for accommodations is to level the difference between potential and performance. Right? I think that a lot of people stigmatize the use of accommodations because they think that a student with learning differences is that has less potential, and that is simply not true, right? And I
that's right.
think that it's critical that we, as a community and a nation, remove the stigma around that. And the other thing that I would tell, but that I tell to parents very much specifically, is it is incredibly common for students who had an IEP and accommodations in high school to not want to take advantage of accommodations when they come to a university setting. I have seen this time and time and time again. We also see students who, have benefited from medication in the past, and they decide to stop taking their medication when they come because it is a rite of passage, right? You're coming to a university. In many ways, you are reinventing yourself, and they choose to reinvent themselves in a way that puts them at a significant disadvantage. And so when I work with parents who have students with learning differences or are pursuing accommodations, I counsel the parents to make sure they're calling in week 4 or 5 and asking questions, because that's when the cracks typically start to appear. And accommodations take some time to set up. So you want to be as proactive as you can be on that front to get them established, and then make sure that the student is like off and running with them from day one. Because if they wait a couple of weeks, it increases the likelihood that the student thinks, I'm doing fine, and then
Right,
midterms come and the reality
right.
changes.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to dig a little deeper in terms of asking questions specific to helping students. Andrew, how can incoming first year students best prepare themselves for their first semester at a college or university?
Yeah, so I have the honor of giving the welcome at these different events and speaking to students as they come for New orientation. And I would say that we- one thing that's important is to really engage fully in the experiences that they're having right now, but also begin to reflect on what they want their university experience to really look and feel like, and to also recognize that they are going to find themselves in very, very different classroom settings. So, when we talk about this generation of students that has lived through the COVID disruption, what we hear overwhelmingly from students is concern about their preparation and maybe some gaps in their preparation. And what I say to those students is, number one, We would not have admitted you if we didn't know that you can be successful at Washington State University, right? We have to fight the imposter syndrome on a daily basis, because the imposter syndrome, that sense that you are just simply not supposed to be somewhere and that you don't belong, is is rife in our community, because these are students who have just moved through adolescence. They are moving into adulthood, and in many ways we've built this experience to give them opportunities to build those skills and the knowledge, and to go through the maturation process. But in many instances, we don't tell them that, right? We built the
Right.
structure, we built the
Right.
process, and then we say, like, all right, student, move in, and now we're going to help shape you to through a transformational activity. Well, so what I would say to students is, prepare yourself to have a set of experiences that are going to really shape who you want to be in the future. The second piece of guidance that I give is, please be creative in how you undertake the academic exercise, right? That in many ways, learning has been school or parental directed, right? The curriculum has helped you to complete activities and projects in a timely way because we've structured it in that fashion. Well, universities are by and large, they're significantly less structured, is how I'll frame that. Now,
Right.
in response to the needs of students coming through COVID, we at WSU, as well as across the higher ed sector, we are being far more kind of instructive on how we chunk out assignments, and how we track students through their progress. But in the main, much of a university education is self-directed, and that is going to require a great deal more, you know, uh, self-direction, discipline, tenacity. I'm reminded of a former colleague of mine who, when we'd present together, he'd say, "Well, listen, adulthood means doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it." And I would follow that up with, and experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So that's how I kind of nutshell my guidance to students is, this is going to be one of the most important and impactful, long and experiences of your life, and it will be what you make of it. And also, the onus will fall to the student for them to advocate for themselves, right? And so, increasingly, we see social anxiety among our students, especially coming in the long tail of COVID. And we can prove it empirically. The number of students coming forwards to ask for help in our tutoring center and in our supplemental instruction sessions has declined precipitously, and it's in many ways because there is less comfort with simply walking into an office and saying, "I am in trouble. I could really use
Right.
some help."
Right.
And so that's the other piece of guidance that I give to incoming first year students is, advocate for yourself, and then advocate for your roommate, advocate for your neighbor, because if we don't know that there is an issue, we cannot help address it.
Well, we appreciate that guidance. That's terrific. And you mentioned COVID quite a few times in your answer. So, given the significant disruption of COVID-19, how else have the characteristics of incoming students changed? And how are higher education institutions adapting to meet the needs of your incoming students?
So it's hard to quantify and identify specifically how the students have changed. One of them is social anxiety, for sure, which I talked about just a little bit ago, and this seeming unwillingness to put themselves forward, ask for assistance, engage with people in different offices. We're also seeing some attendance and enrollment challenges that we had not seen previously. And I think that there is this sense among incoming students that on some days you just can't, right? Like, I think that's a really instructive meme that has come out of the pandemic, that there are times when the malaise comes over a student and they just don't feel like they can do it. And it's surprising to me because when we look at the transcripts and the activities that students have done in high school, when we look at the commitment to community and the desire to make change and be a part of the solution in the future, it's shocking how well prepared
Right.
and tenacious these
Right.
students are. The only the only group that doesn't know how much talent and potential they possess is them. And I don't think that that's unique to this generation, but I think
Right.
that we have never before had a disruption of that magnitude that we could kind of study as it moves through the different levels of K-12 into post-secondary or higher education. And so to the question, what are we doing? Well, very fundamentally, what we're doing is asking students what they need, right?
Right.
That in
Right.
many ways, universities have been fairly paternalistic in the past, where we kind of build the experience for you, and you will come and you will live this like monk style ascetic life in a residence hall, and you will engage in the life of the mind, and we do lofty terms, all of which I actually fundamentally believe in, and that's why I continued to be in higher education. But the reality also is we need to understand what both the academic as well as personal and social needs and mental health needs and physical health needs are of our incoming students. And we all need to recognize that things have changed, right? That these students
Absolutely.
had a profoundly different experience in their high school years than we have had in the past. And one of the interesting things that it has a phenomenon that has arisen, especially within the admissions sector, is, and it is less so this year, but in past years, specifically last year, we realized that students did not have the same access to college and career counseling that they had had in the past because of course that's something that by necessity is jettisoned in an an online capacity, or if you're only
Right.
2 days in the
Right.
school. So as our schools transitioned back during the long tail of COVID, one thing that was lost was that preparation. And so we were seeing students who were like wildly underprepared to complete the application for admission because nobody had ever had the opportunity to talk to them about how to do it. And
Right.
so, the metaphor that we use here in our office is it used to be like a well running airline where students were like walked through the experience and they checked in and you did the application and you got them on the plane, and everybody knew what to expect and everybody felt comfortable. You might have some new flyers that you talked to, and then starting last year we were like running helicopter missions to save students in the Bering Strait. Like it felt much more emergent, like an emergency. And it's because that very intentional pipeline was disrupted. And so now, thankfully, we are seeing students get the same, the a similar access to college and career readiness that we had prior to the pandemic.
Well, I appreciate that and the fact that you're intentional about asking students, what is it that you need, but also meeting them where they are. It really sounds like you have something for every single student, both inside of your classrooms and beyond. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to say for a long time we would talk about students being college ready,
Right,
and I would say that we at WSU have flipped that paradigm on its head, and now we are saying, is WSU student ready?
right, right.
And I think that embracing that kind of philosophical frame is what's going to help us really adapt and meet the needs of this generation as they come through our classrooms.
Well, that's awesome. And this has been a terrific conversation. So, Andrew, before I ask my last question, what I'd like to ask you, because we had a comprehensive conversation here, but I'm curious, is there a question that I didn't ask or a topic that didn't come up that you wish to share with us now?
Honestly, John, no. I feel like the questions have been wonderfully insightful, and that we've had the opportunity to really talk, as you said, comprehensively about how students can find their way into higher education. I hope that a theme that resonates for your listeners, be they students and families alike, is that the value of a bachelor's degree is the best investment that a family can make in their students' future. That when economists are asked what's the best investment that you could make, 9 out of 10 of them say earning a bachelor's degree. And I think that there has been some chipping away at the perceived value of a bachelor's degree specifically and higher education institutions in the past 5 to 8 years. And I just want, students and parents alike to understand that, well, I can give you the number. The earning potential of a student with a bachelor's degree is across their working life is $1.3 million. That you stand to earn $1.3 million more with an earned bachelor's degree. And it does not matter what that bachelor's degree is in, right? We've
Right.
also seen
Right.
this a significant drop in students participating in the humanities, so English and history. But if you look at the working world, people with humanities backgrounds, speaking as a proud son of two social studies teachers and a person who possesses degrees in history and philosophy, the people in the humanities are disproportionately represented in leadership in organizations than any other degree type. So I just wanted to demystify that and put like a serious plug in for philosophers across the globe.
Well, that is fantastic. And this has been a tremendous conversation. Unfortunately, Andrew, it does lead us to the last question, which is what are your top three pieces of advice you would provide students and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah, excellent question. I will try to limit it to three. First, start early. We see a lot of students and families who, in the presence of other stressors and life commitments, they come late, and in doing so, you often are closing some doors, especially financially, around scholarships and those other pieces. So start early. Do your Number two would be do your research, and by that I mean not only research the institutions, what is your student to faculty ratio, your retention rate, your graduation rate. You want to do all of that, but I think also in that research conversation, I think you want to frame for the student what's the experience that they're really looking for. Do they want a small residential experience? Do they want to be in a city to have, access to lots of cosmopolitan activities? Do they want to come to, a mid-size or upper mid-size institution like WSU that's in a rural, piece of the landscape, but offers that like quintessential residential campus experience? Because I often am working with students and families. They say, I looked for the top mechanical engineering program, and that's the institution that I applied for. And I said, that's absolutely great. What I would suggest is you look for the top 15 mechanical engineering programs at institutions where you will feel most comfortable and confident. And then the final piece, and this kind of goes right into to parents, I would say, please be honest and candid with your student about any kind of financial realities that may exist within your family, because the number of times that we are working with a student who is struggling as a junior, so close to completing a degree, and they learn that their parents are simply not able to continue to support them financially in the way that they need to remain enrolled, is absolutely heartbreaking. And I think that, speaking as a father myself and then a higher education professional who has worked with thousands and thousands of students and parents, you don't do your student any service by trying to stretch your finances to make these opportunities possible. I think within the higher education landscape right now, there are more opportunities for students to have creative paths to a successful, bachelor's degree than we've ever seen in the past. And on behalf of higher education writ large, I think I can say we want students to complete degrees in the way that is of greatest benefit and shortest duration for them, because that's how we can best serve our student population, and that's how we can kind of contribute to the globe, our regions, our states, as well as the entire world, to help create a context in which more educated individuals are going to be able to contribute creatively into the labor force and really realize the future that we all want for our children.
Well, those are great pieces of advice, and this has been a tremendous conversation, Andrew. I can't thank you enough. I'm so happy as I know that this is going to help so many students and their parents as they navigate through the college admissions process. I really hope to have you again. You were awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. This has been a real pleasure, and I'd love to come back if you'd have me.
Thank you, Andrew. We really appreciate it. Take care. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP. What's up, podcast friends? I'm happy to announce that we've teamed up with some fantastic affiliate partners to further enhance your overall college journey. So, do you or someone you know needs stylish dorm decor, trendy college apparel, or top-notch test prep? Whether it's creating a cozy home away from home, flaunting the latest in college apparel, or securing top-notch test prep help, we've got you covered. Check out our affiliate links in the show notes within each of these categories, which we believe will help you, our listeners. Please note that if you make a purchase through any of our affiliate links, the podcast does get a small commission. But rest assured that we would only promote products that we believe in and feel would benefit you, our listeners. So check out the links in the show notes and share with anyone you think may benefit. Thank you all, and best wishes.